longtime journalist Tim Gale, formerly of the Montgomery Advertiser for many years, now a freelance journalist writing for a number of publications, including the Alabama football game programs that you get in the fall when you go to Bryant-Denny Stadium. And he's got a fascinating feature story that he wrote that's out at TiderInsider.com right now on Alabama's social media presence for football. The story is titled Using Drones and Social Media to Promote Alabama Football. It is terrific. I read it the other night and immediately got in touch with Tim about coming on the show to talk about it. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning. How's everything going?
It's going well. I heard you tell James we forced you to break away from Big 12 media days on television there, but I think you'll manage for a few minutes.
It is interesting, though. You know, the speaking of social media and the way that TV's gotten more and more involved in these events, that I have never been to Big 12 media days or anything, so I actually just kind of switched over a little bit just to see how the other half lives.
Yeah, I was going to say
doing SEC media days. I wanted to see how other people do it.
Yeah, the SEC would have you believe that nobody else has media days. You know, the only
That's
ones
true.
that do it, but all the other conferences do it as well. Hey, let's talk about this fascinating story because we know Nick Saban doesn't have a social media presence. He doesn't have Twitter. He doesn't have Instagram. He doesn't have Facebook. But because of the incredible coach that he is, he understands just because you might not like something or enjoy it doesn't mean that others feel the same way. And we've seen him evolve as a football coach with the advent of the fastball offenses, as he calls it, adjusting to that and keeping Alabama out front. Now, same thing with social media. They brought in Jonathan King to head up the football side of it, their social media presence, and he's bringing in drones to fly over practice. They've got the barbershop series that everybody loves. They've got this incredible presence for football on social media, but that's relatively new to Alabama. Just pick it up from there, how this story came about and all that you learned about what Alabama's doing.
Yeah, I think the thing that was probably most fascinating to me that might not resonate with other people, but it does with me and you because we've covered Alabama so many years and stuff, is that when I'm talking to Jonathan King, here's a guy that was a student at Alabama, and then he gets involved in social media stuff with Alabama. And I don't even know if that's through marketing or how they do it. But anyway, I'm sitting here talking to the guy for this story, and we're talking about drones and social media. So I'm thinking, I'm tracking him back. Okay, so how did he get involved in this? And he gives me his whole story and everything, how he got involved in the early days with social media. And a lot of fans see this when they go to Facebook or go to Twitter or something. Alabama wins a softball game, and it says retweet the W or something something along those lines. So I'm sitting here going, so Jonathan, so you got involved in that? And he said, yeah, and now we're doing a bigger social media kind of impact. And I said, so how much do you spend with football, and how much do you spend with, say, basketball? Now, I'm sure men's basketball or softball wants you as well. And he goes, no, Tim, you don't understand. I came back just to do football. He said, we still have the rest of it going on. He goes, that's somebody else's. That's some other department stuff. He goes, mine is a specially created department by Nick Saban that all I do is football. And all I do is to expand, our footprint, our social media footprint. And that part of it, I just went, wow, that gives you an idea of how, back to what you said, how Nick Saban might not understand it or might not get involved in it and stuff, but he certainly understands it and how important it is.
Yeah, there's no doubt, Tim. And here's the thing, reading your story that was interesting to me is that, Alabama's been out front in everything, mainly winning games and national championships and SEC championships. But kind of slowly, they were losing ground, it sounds like, in the story based on what some other high-profile programs, you mentioned Clemson and Ohio State, were starting to do with social media in terms of recruiting. And I think that's really what got Nick Saban's attention was recruiting is first and foremost in everything that he does. I mean, he understands that's the lifeblood of your program. So if we're starting to lose ground and these high school prospects are getting this information from these other schools on social media, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, we got to be doing it too. Because with his focus being recruiting, he did not want to slip there, right?
No, you're exactly right. And you're right. I'm glad you picked that up in my story. I'm not sure how hard I hit that, but that was something that Jonathan, he didn't want to talk about, or he didn't want to say stuff that sounded negative toward other schools like Clemson or Ohio State. But he said basically what they do is they throw out like a million tweets out there. They bombard you, and their idea is to get it out there to everybody. And so Nick Saban and Jonathan and Josh Maxson, and Sports Information and all these people that sit down as a group, when they got together, they said, look, we don't want to bombard people with this. We want to less is more. They said, let's do it a little less frequently, but let's make it a little more impactful. And so that's where they came up with the Bama cuts idea. That's where they came up with the Jalen Hurts video and some of those things. Is they said, let's not hit it quite as hard as everybody else hits it, but let's make ours count for more.
Exactly, and they have gotten a lot of boom for their buck, so to speak. You mentioned the video with Jalen Hurts, the bet he had with Charles Barkley on the Iron Bowl, and how that video came about and how much traction it got with Barkley on TNT. And then, of course, the barbershop segment, which was taking off anyway. And then LeBron James decides to make it an issue, saying, hey, I've kind of got the trademark on any kind of barbershop segment, which is ridiculous. I mean, we can go back and find barbershop segments all through, movies and commercials and so forth. But Jonathan King puts these videos together, and then all of a sudden you got Charles Barkley and LeBron James, two of the biggest names, not just in sports, but in popular culture, kind of helping Alabama along. Yeah.
I mean, it was great that in both cases that they got a kind of unexpected national boost, and it kind of gets it out there and gets it where everybody, high profile, high visibility, where everybody's going to see it. And so I asked him, I said, so what do you do, Jonathan, what do you do kind of as a follow-up to that, or what do you do? And he said, well, the main thing that we're out there doing was trying to hit, behind the scenes at practice or do this. He said, right now, the thing I was talking to him right before A-Day, and he said, the thing that we're trying to do is we want to fly a drone, over the stadium, like part of A-Day, just kind of fly it over, and I don't even know how many violations that was. He's talking about FAA and university and the police and Homeland Security. Everybody else are like, no, you can't do that. So it's interesting to see, the way this guy's mind works, that he's just trying to find the next, I don't want to call it weird, but I'll just call it the next social media angle to come at you a different way. And I think that was kind of fascinating to me. It opens my eyes, because every one of us, you, me, and the rest of us, want to get our word out with social media.
Oh, absolutely.
To expand our, horizons a little bit. And so it's always interesting to listen to, this guy who's in charge of it, and listen to how he wants to do it.
You've got some just great quotes in the story early on, talking about the drone and trying to get Nick Saban to buy in on that. King told you we actually didn't get much support for it at first, but he kept on trying. And here's a great quote. We took the drone out to Coach's house and filmed the guys at the lake with him on the boat. He and Terry were impressed by it and liked the footage from that, so they became more comfortable with it, and we were able to use the drone during practice. I think people will remember that boat video where we thought at the time it had run out of gas. It hadn't. There was a mechanical failure, but I remember seeing the drone video on the lake, and it was just awesome, Tim.
Yeah, and that is the funny part of that was you just read through what was quotable. What was not quotable, I guess, is the way he explained it. was he said we went out there and we talked to Coach about flying a drone at practice, and he kind of looked at us like we were crazy, and I started laughing. You could imagine you've been out to practice when the horn sounds and he's over there yelling, "Get them out of here!" And you could imagine that guy doesn't want you flying a drone over practice and shooting formations and all kinds of things. And so I was sitting there going, yeah, I bet that would never work. And he goes, well, it worked because we took the drone out to the lake. And he goes, and Miss Terry saw it. And he goes, when she saw it, then she showed it to him. And then that's when they both got on board. So I was like, okay, well, another notch in her belt, Miss Terry, for promoting Alabama athletics.
And the quote from Nick Saban that you were able to pull through the sports information department on something he had been quoted on, but it just sums it up. Everything that Saban thinks about and the way he goes about his business. This is from Saban in your story. You have to use that as a means to get your point across, good, bad, or indifferent, Saban said, because that's where everybody's head is at. I still don't know how to send a text message, and I can't even use Miss Siri or whatever her name is. Unquote. I mean, that kind of say, hey, you know what? I don't have to understand it as long as I know it's helping us and helping our football program move forward. That's all I need to know. And you convince me of that, we'll use it. And he was convinced by Jonathan King and others that this is something that he needed to get on board with. And in typical Nick Saban fashion, he's going full speed with it.
Yeah, I thought the another funny story that I don't think made it into the story when he was talking about the Bama Cuts series was that he said, I think I mentioned it one line that he said it conflicted with his schedule or something, but the whole backstory, I guess, was sort of like he didn't really want to do that. Jonathan said, I couldn't sense that he was against it. I just couldn't sense that he was for it either. He was kind of like, okay, well, I don't know. And he finally comes up with, look, I got this stuff from this. How long do you need me? And he gives him a line like, Coach, if we could just get you down there for 5 minutes. And I think Jonathan, although he didn't really spell it out this way, I think Jonathan's idea is if we can get you to stick your head in the door and just be like 5 minutes of this video, it kind of authenticates it. It kind of gives it a ring to it. So if you can just kind of stick your head down and he's kind of checking a clock or whatever, he's got a staff meeting, and he goes, okay, we'll do it from, and I don't remember the time, but we'll do it from 2:30 to 2:35. And so Jonathan goes, that'll work. We'll just get filming with it and just stick your head in the door and we'll be okay. So he said, so we go down and we film this. And he goes, we're going along. And he goes, they've got, I don't even remember who he told me it was, but one of his staff is going to stick his head in the door and tell Coach Saban when his 5 minutes are up or whatever time to go. And he says, if you watch the video, he said, Coach Saban comes in and he's kind of, not real. I guess he's sure what he wants to do, but he's not real. It's just average. And then as we go through the moments, you can see him kind of loosening up and getting more and more involved with the players. He said, if you watch closely in the video, you'll see, somewhere where that staff member sticks his head in the door like, Coach, we got to go. And he goes, and Coach Saban just kind of waves him off. Just go away. I'm going to stay here and do this. This is fun, And he goes, after that, never had another issue with it. He said, anytime I tell him whatever time, he makes time and comes and does it.
Wow, that's just unbelievable. One thing that really wasn't touched on in your piece. First of all, how many words was that, Tim? That's a long story.
It was a long story. It was honestly, Josh Maxson, just to give you the backstory on that, Josh Maxson in Sports Information had come up with the idea of doing it. And so we sat down and we were he was going to get me whatever you needed, short of course, Coach Saban, we'll get something if we need something, but otherwise we'll try to make this without him. And here, let's get this done. And so we did it for the football game program. And as you can tell, well, I don't know if you ever saw the story in the football game program, but it's almost two separate stories because I got so much of this other stuff that just didn't really fit in that story. So I kind of just said, you know what? I think the average fan would love to read, how they use the drones, and because that's a good lead to a story, and then they'd want to know what Jonathan had to say about LeBron and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I just kept writing and writing. I was like, God, that's a long story. And I figured it, but it was entertaining. You read all the way through.
Yeah, it's an easy read. One thing not really touched on, but I want to get your opinion on it because you've been doing so much on the social media side. It's clear, too, that when Nick Saban kind of reshaped the staff because of departures, that he did it with recruiting in mind to some degree. Obviously, you got to be able to coach football, clearly, but younger coaches, and we see a huge and increased media presence on social media from these assistant coaches. Josh Gaddis and these guys, Carl Scott, getting out there and getting the message through maybe in a way that we didn't see it from some of the older school coaches that have been on the staff in the past. Have you noticed that?
Absolutely. And I think I'm trying not to call you and me old dogs, but, when you get out there and you look at, say, the media, for example, they will do it the same way. They'll say, hey, we need to increase social media presence. We need to tweet this. We need to Instagram that. We need to Snapchat this. And the older people like you and me and former members of Nick Saban's staff, the older people do it. They understand the value and they do it. But the younger people just embrace it.
That's right.
It's just something that they naturally do, that they naturally love to do. And so by him getting younger members of his staff, he actually got a crew of people in there that nobody had to tell them twice. They're eager to go out there and put something out there and get the word out.
Yeah, you sum that up. It's the same way with me. I understand it's something I have to do. I was slow to the party myself, a little bit like Saban. I come from a traditional television background, and my whole emphasis was, hey, it's all about TV. You want me to put this out on social media before I run it on my sportscast?
Exactly.
Why in the world is anybody going to watch the sports? But you learn how they work together. But you're right. People younger than us, it's just part of it. It's second nature to them. They grew up with it, and they understand not that you just need to use it, but how to use it to make it really effective. It's as I said, your story is fascinating. You can read it at TiderInsider.com. And Tim Gale, longtime beat reporter when he was with the Montgomery Advertiser for Alabama football, now doing feature stories. Great stuff. And we could go on and on about this. Unfortunately, Tim, as you know, in the radio business, we have to get to a break, but really enjoyed the conversation, man.
Yeah, it's time to get some advertisers, pay for the show.
That's right. I got to try to make a couple dollars off this thing. Good to catch up with you, my friend.
Good to talk to you. We'll see you soon.